My name is Serena Phoenix, 23 years old. The call came at 7:23 a.m. on a Tuesday, just 3 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My phone's shrill ring cut through the quiet of my apartment, where I sat cross-legged at my small dining table, sipping coffee and scanning reports for Phoenix Hospitality Group. My empire, $2.8 billion strong, remained the world's best-kept secret, hidden even from my own family. Serena, we need to talk. My father's voice on the other end was clipped, formal, the tone he reserved for corporate negotiations, not family matters. Come to the house, now. I froze with the mug half raised. Dad never spoke like that unless a decision had already been made, the kind of decision where everyone else had been consulted except me. My gut twisted. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The sight of it, the perfectly trimmed hedges, the gleaming black Mercedes in the driveway, the same brass knocker on the door I used to dread slamming shut behind me, stirred a cocktail of nostalgia and unease. Inside, the air felt cold despite the summer heat outside. Mom sat rigid on the leather sofa, her lips pressed so tightly together they nearly disappeared. Dad stood by the fireplace as if he were addressing a boardroom, one hand tucked into his pocket. Jessica, my younger sister, lounged carelessly in the armchair, phone in hand, wearing that smirk she had perfected since high school. "Sit down, Serena," Dad ordered without meeting my eyes. I remained standing. "What is this about?" Mom's voice cut in, sharp as glass. "Your wedding." My heart jolted. "What about it?" "We've made a decision," she said coldly. I kept my expression neutral, though my pulse quickened. "What kind of decision?" Dad turned to face me, jaw clenched. "We're not paying for this circus anymore." The words hit like a slap. "Excuse me." "You heard me." He crossed his arms. $75,000 for one day. The venue, the flowers, the photographer, it's all excessive. "I thought we agreed on the budget months ago," I said quietly. Jessica finally looked up from her phone, smirking. "Yeah, well, that was before we realized how much money you were wasting on stupid stuff." "Like what?" Mom's voice dripped with disdain. "Like that dress. $4,000 for something you'll wear once. And those centerpieces. Who needs crystal and gold leaf at a wedding?" I took a steadying breath. "I've been planning this for 8 months. Marcus and I—" "Marcus," Dad sneered. "That's another problem. He works at a nonprofit. What kind of future is that? No ambition, no real income." "He's a good man." "Good doesn't pay bills," Mom shot back. "Maybe this is a sign you should reconsider the whole thing." My chest tightened. "You want me to call off my wedding?" "We want you to be realistic," Dad said flatly. "Find someone who can afford the lifestyle you seem to expect. Someone with prospects." Jessica snorted. "Yeah, because living in that tiny apartment and driving a 10-year-old Honda really screams high expectations." Their words pressed in on me like a vice. Dad's stern disapproval, Mom's cold judgment, Jessica's amused contempt. It was like standing trial without a defense. These people had raised me, supposedly loved me, and now they were dismantling the most important day of my life as if it were a failed business proposal. "So," I managed, my voice trembling but steady, "what exactly are you saying?" Dad walked to his desk and pulled out a folder. "I've already called the venue, canceled everything. The deposits are forfeited, but at least we're not throwing away the full amount." My stomach dropped. "You canceled my wedding venue?" "Our name was on the contracts," Mom said matter-of-factly. "Legally, we had every right." "The caterer, too," Jessica added with mock helpfulness. "And the photographer. Oh, and the florist." I stared at them, disbelief curdling into fury. "You canceled my entire wedding without even telling me?" "We're telling you now," Dad said. "Consider it a favor. You'll thank us later when you find someone more suitable, someone who can afford you." The room tilted, spinning with betrayal. 8 months of planning. The dress I'd fallen in love with. The photographer we had searched so long to find. The flowers that reminded me of my grandmother's garden. All of it ripped away with a single, arrogant decision. "I can't believe you did this," I whispered. "Believe it," Dad said coldly. "And next time, think before you plan something so far beyond your means." I scanned their faces one last time. Dad, the calculating investment banker, proud of his power to dictate. Mom, perfected in her role as judge and jury, her expression sharp with disdain. Jessica, smug and entertained, basking in my humiliation. "Understood," I said finally. The word dropped like a stone into the silence. They had expected tears, begging, maybe even a desperate fight. Instead, I gave them nothing. Good, Dad said, clearly satisfied. Now you can focus on finding someone more appropriate, someone who won't embarrass the family. Yes, Mom echoed, someone with the right future. I turned toward the door. Serena, Jessica called, mockery, laced with a hint of unease. Don't be dramatic about this. It's for your own good. I paused, hand on the doorknob. My voice came out steady, deliberate. I'm not being dramatic, I'm being practical. And I walked out. The drive back to my apartment felt like a fever dream. The world outside looked unchanged. Same streets, same traffic. But inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't just humiliated, I was severed. At 23, with an MBA from Northwestern and a secret empire worth billions, my family had just canceled my wedding because they thought I couldn't afford it. The irony was almost laughable, almost. But as the city skyline blurred through my windshield, one thought pressed hard against my chest. They had crossed a line they could never uncross. I drove in silence, hands locked on the steering wheel, the early morning light washing the city in pale gold. My chest still felt tight, my mind echoing with the words they had thrown at me like knives. Good doesn't pay bills. Someone who can afford you. Consider it a favor. I almost laughed at the absurdity. They thought Marcus was the problem. They thought money was the problem. If only they knew. The truth was, Marcus wasn't the one without prospects. I wasn't the one living beyond her means. For 4 years, I had been living two lives. The dutiful daughter, the struggling graduate with the old Honda, and the silent architect of a $2.8 billion empire. Phoenix Hospitality Group. My empire, my secret. I built it brick by brick, beginning at 19 when most of my peers were still stumbling home from frat parties. I had been the quiet girl hunched over a laptop, coding until my eyes burned. I turned those late-night lines of code into a tech startup that, to everyone's shock, including my own, sold for $12 million before I was old enough to legally toast the deal with champagne. I poured every penny of that sale into real estate. One modest venue became 2, then 5, then 17 luxury properties spanning 3 states. And at the center of it all stood the jewel in the crown, the Grandaunt Estate, the same estate where my wedding was supposed to take place. I had walked those halls 1,000 times, not as a guest, but as its owner. I knew every marble column, every chandelier imported from Italy, every manicured garden path that overlooked the lake. My parents had no idea their daughter owned the most exclusive wedding venue in the city. And I had wanted it that way. For years, I let them believe I was struggling, that I was barely holding things together in a cramped apartment. It was easier than explaining the truth, that I worked 18-hour days, that I negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions while they assumed I was finding myself. Easier than inviting their judgment, their greed, their inevitable attempts to control what I had built. But now, as their words replayed in my mind, I felt the sting sharper than ever. I wasn't just hurt, I was humiliated, betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect me. I pulled into the underground garage of my apartment complex and sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the steering wheel. My reflection glared back at me in the dark glass of the rearview mirror, pale skin, tired eyes, jaw clenched with restrained fury. 60 seconds. I allowed myself exactly 60 seconds to break. Tears welled up, spilling hot down my cheeks. I pressed the heel of my hand against my mouth to stifle the sob that clawed its way up my throat. My wedding, the dream Marcus and I had woven together, had been ripped apart by the people I had foolishly thought might one day celebrate my happiness. The grief came in waves. First the shock, then the anger, then a raw ache of longing. I wanted them to love me, to believe in me, to see me for who I was, not who they thought I should be. The 60 seconds ended. I inhaled deeply, blinked back the tears, and forced my hands steady again. If my family had declared war on my life, then I would fight back, but not with begging or tears, with strategy. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, every step echoing like a countdown. Inside, the space felt smaller than usual, the quiet pressing in on me. Marcus's voice floated through my mind. His laughter, his optimism, his easy faith in people. He had no idea what had just happened. He was probably sitting at his desk at the nonprofit office, blissfully unaware that my family had detonated the wedding we had spent 8 months building. My phone buzzed. A text from him lit up the screen. Marcus, hey babe, just confirmed final head count with the caterer. 127 guests. Can't wait to marry you in 3 weeks. The sight of it shattered me all over again. He was so excited, so ready for our future, while I stood here with everything in ruins. My fingers hovered over the screen. Should I tell him? Should I break his heart with the truth that his future in-laws had pulled the rug out from under us? Not yet, not like this. There were other calls I needed to make first. I scrolled to the number I had memorized but rarely used, my assistant, Nathan. When he answered, his voice was calm, professional, the one anchor in my spinning storm. Sir, it's Serena, I said, slipping seamlessly into my other life. I need you to pull the Grand Aunt contracts immediately. The Grand Aunt estate, your wedding venue? Yes. Review the cancellation clauses for deposits. Unusual circumstances. There was a pause. Serena, is everything all right? Everything's fine. I just need to understand our options. I'll have everything ready within the hour. Thank you. I ended the call and immediately dialed another number. David, my head of legal. His deep voice answered with a mixture of concern and readiness. It's Serena. Hypothetical scenario. If someone canceled a booking at one of our venues using forged authorization, what's our recourse? That would be fraud, he said instantly. Potential criminal charges plus civil damages. Why do you ask? Just checking our protections. Could you send me the statutes in writing? Of course, Serena. Are we facing a challenge? Nothing like that. Just being thorough. We hung up. The room fell silent again. For the first time since walking out of my parents' house, I allowed myself a small, bitter smile. My family thought they had destroyed me. They thought I was powerless, naive, dependent on them for every dollar, but they had no idea whose ground they had just stepped on. Through the window, I could see the city stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, the Grand Aunt estate gleamed in the sun, preparing for events it hosted week after week. My estate, my kingdom, my weapon. They wanted to play games with my life? Then let them. They had no idea what storm they had just unleashed. The next morning, sunlight streamed weakly through my apartment blinds as I flipped through property reports spread across the table. Numbers steadied me. They were the one language that never betrayed. Revenue projections, occupancy rates, quarterly growth, all of it reminded me that I lived in a world of facts and control, not my family's shifting whims. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello? Serena, what the hell is going on? Dad's voice thundered so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Good morning to you too, I said calmly, taking a deliberate sip of my coffee. The venue just called me. They're refusing to refund our deposits. $7,500. They said the owner personally canceled our refund, said the Martinez family isn't getting a dime back. What did you do? I leaned back in my chair, watching a shaft of light dance across the polished surface. That's interesting. Interesting? Serena, this isn't a game. Did you call them? Did you cause some kind of scene? I didn't cause a scene, Dad. Then why are they saying the owner gave direct orders? Why are they claiming the decision is final? His voice cracked with panic, a sound I'd never heard from him. What the hell did you tell them? I let silence stretch, savoring the reversal. For once he was scrambling for answers while I held every card. Through my office window, the skyline shimmered. In the distance, if I leaned far enough, I could just make out the outline of the Grand Aunt estate, its pristine lake glinting like a mirror. I didn't tell them anything they didn't already know, I said evenly. That's not an answer, Serena. His fury was tipping into desperation. You need to fix this right now. Call them back and straighten this out. I don't think I can do that. What do you mean you can't? The owner's decision is final. A beat of silence. Then his voice, sharp with suspicion. Serena, how do you know what the owner decided? I swirled my coffee slowly, letting the seconds crawl by. Lucky guess. This isn't funny, he roared. Do you even understand how much $7,500 is? I almost laughed. My father, the man who bragged about seven-figure trades, was panicking over a sum my company earned in the time it took to brew this cup of coffee. It's probably not that much to the owner, I said softly. I imagine they make that in about 6 minutes. Serena, what are you talking about? How could you possibly know? His voice broke off suddenly. I heard the sharp intake of breath, like a man realizing he had stepped onto thin ice. Dad? I prompted. Silence stretched. Finally, in a quieter tone, Serena, what's the name of the company that owns the Grand Aunt estate? Why do you ask? Just tell me. Phoenix Hospitality Group. Another silence, this one heavier. I could practically hear his mind racing, connecting dots he had never dared to consider. Serena, he whispered. What's your last name? Legally still Martinez, I replied. Professionally, I go by Serena Phoenix. The phone went so quiet I thought he'd hung up. Then, faintly, I heard him. Oh my God, oh my God. His voice cracked like glass. Dad? In the background, Mom's voice rose, alarmed. Richard, what's wrong? It's her, he stammered. Margaret, it's her. Serena's Phoenix. What are you talking about? Mom demanded. Our daughter. Our Serena is Emma Phoenix, the businesswoman, the one who bought Riverside Mall, the one who owns half the venues in the city. That's our Serena. A gasp. Then Mom's voice, distant but trembling. No, that's impossible. That's Serena? Yes, Mom, I said into the silence. It's me. The phone trembled with static, voices overlapping. Then Dad came back, his tone unsteady, stripped of arrogance. Serena, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. Has there? Yes, a huge misunderstanding. We had no idea you were so successful. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. But we thought you let us assume. You assumed I was a failure. Not a failure, Dad stammered. Just struggling, like most people your age. Most people my age don't own $2.8 billion in assets. I heard something crash in the background, probably a glass dropped from my mother's hand. Jessica's voice chimed in faintly, shrill and stunned. Wait, you're rich? Rich? Comfortable, I corrected coolly. The chaos on the other end was almost comical. For years, they had mocked my old car, my tiny apartment, my aimless life. Now, confronted with the truth, they scrambled like rats in a flood, trying to rewrite their roles in my story. Dad's voice returned, fragile but urgent. Serena, listen to me carefully. We can fix this. We can call the venue back. The venue you already canceled? Yes, but we can reinstate everything. The whole wedding. With what money? I asked. With yours, of course. Now that we know... I cut him off, my voice low but sharp. You said I needed to find someone who could afford me, that Marcus wasn't good enough, that I was reaching beyond my means. What changed? There was a long pause, then Mom's voice, weak but pleading. Now we know you can afford yourself. I stood and walked to my window. Outside, the city pulsed with life, but all I saw was the Grandon estate shimmering in the distance. My estate, my weapon, my truth. Their desperation filled the silence. Mine was the only calm voice in the storm. Then you've just admitted it, I said softly. You don't care about me. You care about money, and you were wrong about everything. The silence on the line stretched so long I could hear the faint hum of my own refrigerator in the background. Then, at last, Mom's voice returned, a brittle sweetness coating every syllable. Serena, honey, she began, the icy tone from yesterday replaced by syrupy warmth. We didn't mean the things we said. We just didn't understand. If we had known... I closed my eyes, letting her voice wash over me. If we had known. Always conditional, always tied to information, to appearances, to value measured in currency. Jessica suddenly broke in, her voice higher than usual, trembling between awe and greed. So wait, you're actually, like, a billionaire? The Serena Phoenix? Oh my God, why didn't you say anything? I mean, I wouldn't have made those jokes if I'd known. I almost laughed. So your kindness has a price tag now? That's not what I meant, she snapped, then softened quickly. I just mean, we could have celebrated you properly. I mean, you're amazing, sis. Incredible. Like, legendary. People worship you online. Do you know how many influencers would kill to be photographed at the Grandont estate? And you own it. Her words, meant to flatter, cut deeper than the mockery. She didn't even realize she was confirming my worst fear. Their affection was transactional, given only when profit was possible. Dad finally spoke, his voice calm but calculated, the way he sounded when he negotiated contracts. Serena, let's be reasonable. Families fight, harsh words get said, but in the end, family is family. We can put this behind us. Behind us? My voice sharpened. You canceled my wedding, without asking, without telling me. You humiliated me, dismissed Marcus, reduced me to some failed investment. And now that you know I can fund the entire thing myself, suddenly it's all family is family. You're twisting this, Dad said sharply. Then, softening. Sweetheart, we were trying to protect you. Marcus, Well, you must admit, he doesn't come from money. He can't provide for you. We thought you were depending on us, and we didn't want to see you trapped." "Trapped?" I repeated, my voice rising despite myself. "Do you hear yourself? You thought you could control me. That's what this has always been about. Control." Silence, heavy, suffocating. I turned to the window, my reflection staring back at me. Steady eyes, clenched jaw, a woman torn between fury and sorrow. For years, I had longed for their approval, mistaking it for love. Now, standing in the aftermath of their betrayal, I saw it clearly. Approval was just another leash. "Serena," Mom tried again, her voice soft now, coaxing. "Darling, we are proud of you, truly. Look at what you've accomplished. You're extraordinary. All those long nights in your room, typing away. We thought you were wasting time. We were wrong. We see it now. We just want to be part of your success, to share it with you." "To share it?" I echoed bitterly. Jessica jumped in quickly. "Yeah, like imagine the headlines. The Martinez family wedding, hosted at the Grandon Estate. It would be iconic. We'd be the talk of the city. Everyone would envy us." I felt something inside me snap. They didn't even bother hiding it. Not love, not remorse, just envy, greed, image. I let the silence draw out until they fidgeted. Then, with deliberate calm, I said the words I hadn't planned until they formed themselves. "You're not invited." The chaos exploded instantly. "What?" Jessica shrieked. "You can't uninvite your own family." "Serena, don't be ridiculous," Mom hissed. "We're your parents." "Exactly," Dad thundered. "This is family business. You can't exclude us from your wedding." "Watch me," I said softly. I could almost hear their stunned faces through the phone. "You don't mean that," Dad said finally, his voice hardening again. "You're just angry. You'll regret it." "No," I said. "What I regret is believing that one day you might see me for me, not for what I could give you. Yesterday you called Marcus worthless. You told me to find someone who could afford me. Today you're tripping over yourselves to apologize because you discovered I don't need anyone to afford me. That isn't love. That's opportunism." "Serena," Mom started, her voice wobbling now, tears creeping in. But I cut her off. "I want you to really think about this. If I were still driving my old Honda, living in my tiny apartment, and depending on Marcus's nonprofit salary, would you be calling me right now to apologize? Would you be begging to reinstate the wedding?" The silence on the line was deafening. "Would you?" I pressed. Dad's breathing was heavy. "We would have wanted what was best for you." "And in your eyes, what was best for me was humiliation and abandonment," I said. "Thank you for clarifying." "Serena," Jessica's voice cracked, almost pleading now. "Come on, you don't mean this. We're sisters. We fight. We say things, but we're blood. Blood matters." I let her words hang, my heart aching even as my resolve solidified. "Blood matters," I agreed, "but loyalty matters more, and you've shown me where yours lies." The line went silent again. This time, no one rushed to fill it. I swallowed hard, a lump burning in my throat, and forced myself to breathe steadily. "The wedding will happen exactly as planned, but not with you there, not any of you." "Serena," Mom whispered, the sound fragile, broken. "Please." "I have to go," I said, my voice final. "Goodbye." And I ended the call. The silence of my apartment roared louder than their voices ever had. I set the phone down, my hands trembling slightly, and stared out the window. For the first time in my life, I had turned my back on them. But even as anger surged in my veins, something softer ached beneath it. A daughter's love that refused to fully die, no matter how poisoned it had become, and I hated myself for it. That evening, I couldn't concentrate. The numbers on my reports blurred into meaningless lines, the city lights outside my window flickering like restless thoughts I couldn't tame. My family's voices still rang in my ears, but louder than their accusations was Marcus's text from earlier, his joy, his innocence, his belief that in 3 weeks we'd stand hand in hand at the altar. How could I tell him everything without breaking that light in his eyes? When his name finally lit up my phone, Marcus calling, I hesitated before answering. "Hey, babe." His voice came warm, familiar, a balm I didn't deserve. "Your dad just called me. He sounded off. Is everything okay? He said there was some kind of family emergency about the wedding." My chest tightened. Of course Dad would reach out, trying to rewrite the narrative before I could. "Marcus, can you come over tonight?" "Of course. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay. I'll explain when you get here." Less than an hour later, he was at my door, his tie loosened, hair mussed from running his hand through it. The sight of him, solid, steady, nearly broke me. I pulled him inside and for a long moment just held on, breathing in the quiet strength of him. He leaned back slightly, searching my face. "Serena, what's going on? Your dad was practically shouting down the phone. Should I be worried?" I led him to the couch. My hands trembled slightly as I clasped his. "Marcus, there's something I should have told you a long time ago. Something I've kept from you, from everyone." He frowned, concern deepening. "You're scaring me." I took a breath, steadying myself. "Do you remember when we first met? How I told you I was working through some career changes, figuring things out?" "Yeah, and I didn't care. I loved that you were passionate, even if you were still deciding where to land." A bitter laugh escaped me. "I wasn't figuring things out. I was hiding. Marcus, I own Phoenix Hospitality Group." He blinked, confusion flickering. "Wait, what?" "I'm the founder, the owner. It started with one property. Now it's 17 luxury venues across 3 states. The Grandon Estate, our venue, it's mine." He stared, his mouth slightly open. "You're telling me you're Serena Phoenix? The Serena Phoenix? The one I read about in business articles? The woman Forbes keeps calling a prodigy?" "Yes." He let go of my hands, leaning back like the couch was the only thing holding him upright. His face cycled through disbelief, awe, and something like betrayal. "And you never told me?" I swallowed hard. I was terrified. Terrified you'd look at me differently, that you'd see dollar signs instead of me, that you'd love the empire instead of the woman. His eyes softened, though his voice cracked. "Serena, do you really think so little of me?" "No," I shook my head fiercely. "It's not you. It's them. My family has only ever valued people for what they can provide. I didn't want that to be us. I wanted to know you loved me. Just me, without the glitter, without the weight of it all." He leaned forward again, catching my trembling hands. "Serena, I love you. The woman who falls asleep halfway through movies, who cries when she sees stray dogs, who insists on making pancakes on Sundays even though they always burn. That's the person I fell for, not the billions, not the venues." Tears blurred my vision. His words cut deeper than any my family had ever spoken because they were real, pure. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Then you should know. My family canceled the wedding. They called the venue, the caterer, everything. They told me Marcus wasn't good enough, that I was wasting money I didn't even have. They destroyed it all because they thought I couldn't afford it." He stiffened. What?" "They canceled everything," I whispered, behind my back. "And when they found out who I really am, suddenly it was all apologies, fake smiles, desperate begging to be invited again." His jaw tightened, anger blazing in his eyes. "They canceled our wedding because they thought you were poor, and now they want back in because you're rich?" "Exactly." For a moment he was silent, fury radiating from him in waves. Then he shook his head, incredulous. "That's not just cruel, Serena. That's disgusting." I laughed through the tears. "You should have heard them. One day I'm a disappointment, the next I'm a legend. And all that changed was their knowledge of my bank account." Marcus cupped my face in his hands, his voice fierce but tender. "Listen to me. We don't need them. We never did. You've built your life from nothing, Serena. And we'll build ours the same way, together, without their poison." I pressed my forehead against his, the ache in my chest loosening at last. "But they're still my family," I whispered, and part of me still wanted them there, to clap when I walked down the aisle, to say they were proud. His thumb brushed a tear from my cheek. "Wanting that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But Serena, love isn't love if it has conditions, and they've shown you theirs does." I closed my eyes, letting his words settle into the cracks of my heart. For the first time since that morning's call, I felt steady again, loved not for what I had built, but for who I was when I stripped it all away. "Then we'll do it our way," I said quietly. "We'll get married at the Grandon Estate. We'll dance under the lights, and it will be perfect, without them." Marcus smiled faintly, though his eyes still burned. "I don't need anyone else there, just you." I kissed him softly, tasting salt from my own tears. In that moment, I knew, whatever battles lay ahead, this man was my home. The next morning, I woke to a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. For once, the heaviness that had lived in my chest like a permanent tenant was gone, replaced by something sharper, resolve. I sat at my desk with a blank sheet of paper before me. Words came slowly at first, then faster, spilling in crisp, deliberate lines. Dear Dad, Mom, and Jessica, thank you for clarifying your feelings about my life choices and my value as a family member. Your decision to cancel my wedding without my consent has saved me years of wondering whether you truly supported my happiness or simply tolerated it when convenient. Please consider this my formal notice. You are no longer invited to participate in my wedding or any future life events. This decision is final and non-negotiable. For the record, I built Phoenix Hospitality Group from nothing while living in that tiny apartment you mocked. I worked 18-hour days for 4 years to create something meaningful while you assumed I was failing to meet your standards. The fact that you now want to celebrate my success after trying to sabotage my happiness tells me everything I need to know about your character. Marcus and I will be married as planned on September 15th. We will build our life surrounded by people who value integrity over wealth and love over status. Sincerely, Serena Phoenix, CEO, Phoenix Hospitality Group. I read it over once, twice, then signed my name with a steady hand. A courier arrived at 9 sharp to deliver the letter to my parents' home. By 11, my phone was vibrating off the desk. First, it was Dad, his voice a mixture of outrage and desperation. Serena, this is absurd. You can't just cut us off like this. We're family. Family doesn't disinvite family. Family doesn't cancel each other's weddings without a word, I replied coolly. We're even. This isn't the same thing, he snapped. We thought we were helping, and now you're making us look like fools. You did that yourselves. I ended the call. 15 minutes later, security buzzed from the lobby of my office tower. Ms. Phoenix, there are 3 individuals here claiming to be your family. They insist they must see you. I didn't even look up from my report. Escort them out. Are you certain? The guard asked. Positive. From my office window, I caught a glimpse of them as they were guided firmly back to the street. Mom in her pearls, Dad's face red with fury, Jessica half crying, half arguing. For a flicker of a moment, my chest tightened. They looked smaller than I remembered, vulnerable even. But then I remembered Mom's voice telling me Marcus had no prospects, Jessica's smirk as she called my choices stupid, Dad's sneer as he declared I needed to find someone who could afford me. The ache in my chest hardened into steel. That evening, another call came. This time, Jessica. Her voice was shaky, layered with tears. Serena, please, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean the things I said. I was just jealous. You've always been the golden child, and I was nothing, so I lashed out. Please don't cut us out forever. I closed my eyes, listening to the raw desperation I had never once heard from her before. For a split second, the sister in me wanted to reach back, to bridge the gap. But then her voice shifted, a little too quickly, a little too practiced. Besides, think of the press. A billionaire's wedding without her family? People will ask questions, ugly rumors. Do you really want that? There it was, the manipulation. Not love, not remorse. Image, reputation, self-interest. You're right, I said softly. Her breath hitched. So, you'll let us come? No, I said. You're right that people will ask questions. And when they do, I'll tell them the truth, that you canceled my wedding behind my back because you thought I couldn't afford it, and that when you discovered the truth, you tried to crawl back. That's the story I'll tell, Jess, because it's the truth. Her sharp inhale filled the silence. You wouldn't. I already have, with Marcus, with everyone who matters. The only people still clinging to their lies are you. The call ended with a choked sob and the click of disconnection. I set the phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. My heart ached, not with regret, but with grief for something that had never truly existed, the illusion of unconditional family love. I thought of Marcus, of the way his hands had cupped my face the night before, of his steady voice telling me love without conditions was the only kind that mattered. He was right. The rest, the blood ties, the shared history, was just noise. And I was finally learning to let the noise go. The morning of September 15th dawned clear and golden. Sunlight spilled across the lake outside the Grandon estate, shimmering on the ripples as if blessing the day with quiet approval. The gardens glowed with white roses and baby's breath, flowers I had chosen because they reminded me of my grandmother's garden, where I'd once believed family meant safety. Now, family meant absence. Inside the bridal suite, laughter filled the air. My college roommate, Sarah, fussed with my veil, teasing me about my nerves. Marcus's younger brother, Jake, poked his head in with a mischievous grin, only to be shooed out immediately. The room was alive with warmth. Friends who had stood by me through late-night tears and early morning triumphs. People who loved me not for what I owned, but for who I was. And yet, when the room quieted for a moment, when Sarah stepped out to grab lipstick, when Jake closed the door behind him, the silence pressed in. A hollow ache bloomed in my chest. I imagined my mother's hands adjusting the hem of my dress, my father clearing his throat to hide emotion, Jessica rolling her eyes but secretly proud. Fantasies, nothing more. They had chosen not to be here. Or rather, they had forced me to choose life without them. A knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. 5 minutes, Serena, the coordinator called. I rose, smoothed the gown that shimmered like liquid light, and caught my own reflection in the mirror. A woman stared back at me. Not the daughter who had been dismissed as unworthy, not the sister mocked for dreaming too big, but Serena Phoenix, who had clawed her way to power and built a life from ashes. When the music began, I stepped into the sunlight. Gasps rose from the crowd as I walked down the aisle, not because of the dress or the venue, but because joy radiated from me in a way it never had before. My eyes locked on Marcus at the altar. He looked at me as if I were the only person on earth, and in that moment, I believed it. The vows passed in a blur of tears and laughter. I promise to stand with you, Marcus said, his voice trembling, through storms and silence, through wealth and loss, through every twist life throws our way. And I promise, I whispered back, to let your love matter more than the world's judgment, to choose you every day without conditions. When the officiant declared us husband and wife, the cheer that erupted was thunderous, shaking the very air. Marcus pulled me close, his kiss fierce and certain, sealing a promise that no betrayal could undo. At the reception, fairy lights twinkled between ancient oak trees, casting a golden glow over tables, overflowing with laughter. Sarah's speech made everyone cry. Jake's made everyone laugh again. Guests danced barefoot on the grass, glasses clinked, and for the first time in months, I felt pure, uncomplicated joy. And yet, beneath it, a shadow lingered. Every time I caught sight of the empty chairs where my parents might have sat, every time I imagined Jessica's sharp jokes softened by pride, a pang struck my heart. Not regret. No, never regret, but grief. Grief for what could have been. If only they had loved me without conditions. Halfway through the evening, I slipped away from the crowd, my phone buzzing in my clutch. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, each from my family. My thumb hovered over the screen, temptation gnawing at me. What if, this time, it was different? What if one message was real? I clicked one open. Dad's voice frantic. Serena, listen, this is madness. You can't do this without us. We're your family. Call me back, please, please. Another. Mom crying. Darling, we were wrong. I see it now. Just let us in. Just for tonight. Jessica's voice, shaky but manipulative as ever. You're making a mistake. Everyone will think you're cruel, heartless. Don't ruin your reputation, Serena. I deleted them all. Marcus found me a few minutes later, standing alone under the lights. He slipped his arm around my waist. They're still calling? Non-stop. His gaze was steady, protective. Do you want to answer? I shook my head, leaning into him. No, tonight is ours. He kissed the top of my head. Then let's go dance. Back under the canopy of stars, we spun together on the dance floor, laughter bubbling up from somewhere deep, somewhere untouched by pain. Around us, friends cheered, music swelled, and I realized the truth. Family wasn't defined by blood. Family was defined by love, by loyalty, by those who stood beside you when everyone else walked away. And in that moment, bathed in light, surrounded by love, I knew I had chosen right. 6 months later, a thick envelope arrived by courier. My father's handwriting sprawled across the front in stiff, uneven strokes, as if pride itself resisted his attempt. Inside, 3 pages of apology. He mentioned my impressive business acumen 14 times. He praised my entrepreneurial brilliance, my visionary leadership, my unmatched discipline. Every sentence dripped with admiration for the empire I had built, every paragraph bending toward one plea: reconciliation. Nowhere did he mention love. Nowhere did he say he missed me, or that he regretted the words that cut deepest. Only admiration, only respect for what he finally recognized as valuable. I sent back one sentence: some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. A year later, Jessica tried a different tactic. A LinkedIn message appeared in my inbox. Hey, sis. I've grown a lot this past year. I've reflected on who I was and who I want to be. I know I was cruel, and I regret it. Phoenix hospitality is incredible. Would there be any entry-level marketing positions available? I'd love to learn from you. Attached was her resume. I forwarded it to HR with a note: file under, do not hire. By then, life with Marcus had blossomed. We bought a home overlooking the lake, just 10 minutes from the Grandaunt estate. Its wide windows welcomed in the morning light, and every evening the water turned to fire as the sun sank low. We filled the rooms with laughter, dinner parties, friends who had known us when I was just a girl with a laptop, and he was just a nonprofit worker. Friends who hadn't needed titles or wealth to believe in us. Sometimes when I drove past my parents' house on the way to a meeting, I noticed the changes. Their lawn wasn't as perfectly maintained. The cars in the driveway were older, the shine dulled, word spread through acquaintances. Dad's firm had been hit hard by the downturn, struggling to stay afloat. Mom had taken part-time work at a boutique. Jessica floated aimlessly, dabbling in online ventures that never took root. I felt no triumph at their decline, no satisfaction in their struggle. But I felt no guilt either. They had chosen their values long before I chose mine. On quiet nights, Marcus and I would sit on the terrace, a bottle of wine between us, and talk about the future. Children, travel, expansion of the company. But every so often, my mind drifted back to the girl who once begged for her parents' approval, who once thought family meant unconditional love. That girl was gone. I had learned something harsher, truer. Unconditional love is only unconditional if it doesn't vanish when bank accounts or status are stripped away. My family's love had always been conditional, though I'd been too blinded by longing to see it. The night of our wedding had been called a circus by them, but standing under fairy lights, dancing barefoot on the grass, surrounded by people who had chosen us, it was no circus, it was freedom. And I paid for every moment of it, every rose, every glass, every note of music, paid with my own hands, my own heart, my own worth. For once, no one could claim they had built it for me. It was mine. And in that truth, I finally found peace.